Today, we're diving into one of the most crucial decisions you'll make as a writer, choosing your story's point of view. If you've ever found yourself staring at a blinking cursor, paralyzed by the POV possibilities swirling in your head, first person, third person limited, omniscient, oh my, then this video is for you. We're going to break down the key strengths and limitations of the four main POVs, so you can choose the perfect perspective to bring your tale to life. Think of your story's POV like the lens of a camera. It's the tool that determines what your reader will see, how much they'll know, and how deeply they'll connect with your characters. And just like a filmmaker chooses different lenses for different shots and moods, you as a writer have to choose the POV that best serves your story's unique needs. Do you want to create an intimate emotions on the sleeve confessional? A sprawling epic with a cast of thousands? A nail-biting mystery with an unreliable narrator at the helm? Your POV choice will shape every aspect of how that story is told and experienced. So, let's crack open the POV toolbox and examine the pros and cons of each perspective. First up, we've got first person, the I, me, my perspective, that puts readers directly in your protagonist's head. When it's done well, first-person POV can forge an incredibly deep bond between reader and character. We're not just watching the story unfold from the outside. We're living it, moment by moment, through the narrator's eyes and heart and guts. Just look at a book like The Hunger Games. By telling the story in Katniss Everdeen's raw, fiery first-person voice, Suzanne Collins pulls us into her world with visceral immediacy. We feel Katniss's rage and terror in the arena, her aching love for her family, her gnawing hunger in her belly. It's a POV perfectly matched to a gritty story of survival against all odds. But first person isn't all sunshine and intimate connection. It comes with some built-in limitations that are important to consider. When you're telling a story through one character's perspective, you're inherently limited to what that character directly experiences, observes, and knows. No matter how much Katniss might wonder what President Snow is scheming in his capital lair, she can't hop into his head and find out. As a writer, you have to get creative about how to convey crucial information that your first-person narrator might not be privy to. First person can also feel claustrophobic or even unreliable if your narrator has a very narrow or biased viewpoint. We're seeing the world through their filter, for better or worse. So if you're going to use this POV, make sure it's the right fit for your protagonist and your plot. A tight, single POV story, like a gritty murder mystery or an emotional coming-of-age tale. First person could be your new best friend, a sprawling historical saga covering decades and continents. You might want to widen the lens. Speaking of unconventional perspectives, let's talk about second person, the POV that looks your reader dead in the eye and says, you, yes, you are the protagonist now. By casting the reader as a character in the story, second person can create an instantly immersive, almost interactive feel, like those Choose Your Own adventure novels from the 80s and 90s. When it works, it really works. Like in Jay McInerney's Bright Lights, Big City. The nameless protagonist's life spirals out in a cocaine-fueled haze of empty parties and dead-end jobs. And the second-person narration makes us feel both transported into and implicated in his downward spiral. Lines like, "You are not the kind of guy who would be in a place like this at this time of the morning," pack an extra punch because they're talking directly to us, the readers. But, fair warning, second person is hard to pull off for a sustained narrative. It's the literary equivalent of looking someone dead in the eye and monologuing at them for hours. It can start to feel gimmicky, invasive, or just plain weird if not handled with serious skill and restraint. For most writers, Second person is best used in small, strategic doses, maybe a short story or a single startling chapter. Definitely not for the POV newbies or faint of heart. If you want the Goldilocks, just right balance of character closeness and narrative flexibility, third person limited might be the POV for you. In this perspective, you're still telling the story through one character's experiences at a time, but with a smidge more distance and authority than first person. It's the difference between I woke up on the morning of the reaping and Katniss woke up on the morning of the reaping. With third limited, you can snuggle right up to your point of view character's thoughts and feelings, but you've got a bit more wiggle room as the narrator to offer insights or observations that the character might not think to articulate in an I voice. It's like you're perched on the character's shoulder, seeing what they see and feeling what they feel, but with a slightly wider lens. J.K. Rowling puts that flexibility to marvelous use in the Harry Potter series. The books are told in close third person from Harry's perspective, so we experience all the wonder and danger of the wizarding world through his eyes. But Rowling can also pull the camera back to give us establishing shots of Hogwarts or Diagon Alley, or linger on other characters' facial expressions and body language in a way that Harry, the narrator, probably wouldn't focus on himself. It's the best of both worlds, intimacy and scope. The limitation of third limited, of course, is that you're still bound to what your POV character directly witnesses and knows. If Harry's not in the room with Snape and Dumbledore, we don't get to hear what they're saying about him. As the writer, you have to carefully structure your scenes and reveals around your character's experiences, doling out information strategically to keep your reader engaged. And then there's the granddaddy of all POVs, the one that makes you feel like an all-seeing, all-knowing deity perched above your story world. Third-person omniscient. In this perspective, you're not limited to any one character's point of view. You can zoom in and out of different people's heads, reveal information that none of them would know individually, offer commentary and foreshadowing and philosophical musings to your heart's content. When it's done well, omniscient POV can create a profound sense of scale, depth, and connection, like in J.R.R. Tolkien's The Lord of the Rings. Tolkien's narrator is almost a character in itself, weaving in and out of different storylines and character perspectives with fluid grace, offering insights into the history and lore of Middle-earth that no single hobbit or elf or man could possess. It's a POV that can handle a sprawling epic with ease. But omniscient is also one of the trickiest POVs to manage, especially for newer writers. Juggling all those character voices and arcs, knowing when to reveal information and when to withhold it, maintaining a cohesive narrative voice. It's like spinning a dozen plates at once while riding a unicycle. In the hands of a master like Tolkien, it's symphonic. In clumsier hands, it can feel head-hopping and disorienting. Omniscient also runs the risk of feeling emotionally distant from your characters. When you're not tethered to any one perspective for very long, it can be harder for readers to forge that bone-deep bond with your protagonists. As the writer, you have to work extra hard to make each character's voice and journey compelling enough to hook readers, even as you're weaving a larger tapestry. So, we've covered the four main POVs. First person, up close and personal. Second person, unconventional and in your face. Third, limited, the balanced best of both worlds. And omniscient, the God-like view from above. Each one is a tool in your writing toolkit, with its own unique strengths and challenges. And the key is knowing which tool to use for which story. Before you commit to a POV, ask yourself, what kind of emotional experience do I want to create for my readers? How close do I want them to feel to my protagonist is? How much information needs to be revealed, and when, and how? What's the scope and scale of my story? Is it an intimate character study or a vast, multi-generational saga? Answering those questions will help guide you to the POV that will best serve your tale. And don't be afraid to experiment. If you're feeling stuck or uninspired in your current POV, try rewriting a scene in a different perspective and see how it changes the energy, the insights, the reader experience. Some of the most groundbreaking books out there have played with POV in utterly unexpected ways, like Marcus Zusak's The Book Thief, narrated by death itself, or Marisha Pessel's Night Film, which includes news clippings, web screenshots, and other found footage mixed in with its prose. The possibilities are as endless as your imagination. The bottom line is, POV is one of the most powerful tools you have as a writer to shape your reader's journey through your story. So choose wisely and wield your power well.